stocks right around the planet inched higher on Tuesday. The dollar, though, that had a bit of an interesting turn today. It turned negative after hitting a 3-week high at the end of a historic summit between the leaders of the DPRK and the U.S. in Singapore. The U.S. President Donald Trump, DPRK leader Kim Jong Un, they signed a comprehensive, in their description, deal aimed at the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Now, the MSCI All-Country World Index, which tracks shares in about 47 countries, was higher by about 0.1% on the day. In Tokyo, trading was volatile. The Nikkei paired early gains, closing about 0.3 higher, rising, though, by as much as 0.9 earlier on in the session. South Korean shares, though, they were relatively calm. The benchmark KOSPI index, that closed virtually unchanged, down 0.05% at 2,468 points. Now, investors had mixed reactions to the summit, which had precious few details on how the goal set by these two men would actually be achieved. So then let's get you the latest details on this from CGTN's White House correspondent, Jessica Stone. She's live in Washington, D.C. right now. Jessica, good to see you. How is this outcome from this summit? How has it played out at home, both among voters and also with American legislators? From their perspective, who got the better deal here?
Well, there is a ton of criticism coming from all corners of the United States right now about really what was accomplished. You know, just saying it's a success doesn't make it one. And many of the arbiters of success, namely the president's own words and the Secretary of State's own words, that there would be a complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization, or at least a commitment to it, that did not happen in the statement. And it didn't happen in the words afterwards that were expressed by President Donald Trump. So his supporters and his critics alike, both a little bit confused, disappointed was one word. I've seen a lot from some of those on the right. Hey, listen, we were looking for you to continue maximum pressure and to continue this tough guy talk. To make sure that we got somewhere with these negotiations. Now it appears that you've given more than you've gotten.
Indeed. So the Pentagon also saying a little later on after the summit outcome that they will proceed with the exercises scheduled for the fall. Ulchi Freedom Guardian. So where does that leave the president's proposal to suspend military exercises with South Korea's military?
Right, and that, of course, was the sort of unannounced or unscripted giveaway that the President of the United States appeared to be saying without even telling his allies in Tokyo and in Seoul that he was going to suspend those DPRK-U.S. exercises. Listen, the Pentagon has not gotten the word yet that that's going to happen. They're continuing their planning as going ahead for those exercises. And really, we could see that August exercises, usually the last couple of weeks of August, we could see that as almost a deadline by which, if there isn't more progress from Pyongyang on declaration, on opening up to verification, that perhaps those military exercises would go ahead as planned. But there is also, it's also worth noting, often a lag time between when the president makes an announcement and when the Pentagon gets the orders. So we're going to have to see if that was just an attempt to sort of appease his hosts or if in fact it's going to go forward as planned.
Indeed. We've also seen a pledge here to move towards, quote, complete denuclearization. But what exactly does that mean? Because it does sound like the US and the DPRK have completely different ideas on this. The DPRK is saying they've dismantled their test site, although there's no independent verification of that. But strictly speaking, why would it give up these nuclear-tipped missiles when they've gotten it a face-to-face meeting with the President of the United States?
I think there's a lot of people are asking that very question. But in terms of the definition of complete denuclearization, what's key there is on the peninsula. So that indicates the whole peninsula, not just the DPRK. And so what the DPRK says that means is, you know, no U.S. forces on the DMZ, nor more military exercises or a nuclear umbrella guaranteed by Washington. But for Washington, they have defined denuclearization as this acronym CVID, complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization, which is a big ask, mind you. It's not easy to do that overnight. There are some estimates it could take as long as 15 years to do that. And keep in mind, by all accounts, Pyongyang now is a nuclear state capable of reconstituting a nuclear program, even if it were to shut it down. So I think it's very much in question what this definition means, and it's now left to Mike Pompeo, the U.S. Secretary of State, as he moves on to Tokyo, Seoul, and Beijing, to explain what is next. What is next in terms of the economic promises that have been made, but also what is next with respect to the expectations for declaration from Pyongyang.
Indeed. One last question for you, Jessica. This has a really strong whiff of deja vu about it, because past leaders of the DPRK have promised a lot, but they've failed to deliver on agreed goals. It's happened in '85, it's happened in the mid-90s. So given the lack of specific details on goals and timelines, isn't this just more of the same?
Well, that is what a lot of people are saying. I don't think you would be wrong to say that that is your understanding of how things are going right now. Certainly, they do. The talks traditionally have broken down in the past over the issue of declaration, and since we didn't get a firm commitment to declare by Pyongyang its nuclear weapons and its nuclear program, we're going to have to see if Mike Pompeo can come away with that in the course of the next follow-up meetings that he's going to have. Because if that doesn't happen within the next couple of weeks or within the next couple of months before those ROK-U.S. exercises, you could totally see a scenario in which those continue as some point of leverage. But of course, the President of the United States has given a lot of leverage to Pyongyang, showing publicly in terms of the propaganda that this gives the DPRK, a lot of pictures of and a lot of international respect. This is a man who before a few weeks ago had not met with all of these different world leaders. He's now met with the presidents of the ROK and China. There's a meeting with President Putin on the docket. A lot has been given. The question is, what are those details? And we're still waiting to find that out. Indeed, quite the head scratcher, this one. Thank you for the update. That's Jessica Stone there, of course, live in Washington, D.C.